Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Rich R.
Well, Lake County was sort of considered almost like neutral for a lot of years, meaning that with the 1% clubs, they kind of left it alone. And there were like 5 smaller clubs like ours. The Brothers Rising, the Sojourners, Creed, the Wheelers. Well, the Wheelers, I think, were more McHenry County.
Were they all 3-piece patches?
Yeah, pretty much. And we would actually get together at the beginning of the year and plan our calendar for the year. So the clubs would work together to make sure that, like, if the Sojourners were throwing a party on a certain weekend, we didn't throw a party on the same weekend.
Yeah, so it'd be all spread out, kind of.
Yeah, we worked together, and if there was a confrontation between a couple brothers or something, the club would probably get together and figure out if there was anything to do about it, or whether to just turn these guys loose to deal with each other.
So your time being in this club, you're not like stressed out, like as if it was a 1% club, right?
Well, we ran into the 1%ers.
What happened when you run into 1%ers?
Well, I learned early on, like the Outlaws were like the big club in the area. Number 2, the second biggest club in the area was the Hell's Henchmen, and they eventually folded up their colors with Hell's Angel. And there was a bit of a war between the Outlaws and the Hell's Angels then in this area.
Mel Chancey Mel Chancey was the leader of the Hells Angels at the time. He was the youngest president.
It was after I left the club, and I wasn't really paying attention.
Shout out to Mel Chancey. He's a good friend. Yeah, he was a Hells Henchman. He ended up patching over to the Hells Angels. He became the president. I think he was like 24, 26 years old. He was the youngest president in the country at the time.
Oh, no good.
And he was dealing with the war. They were shooting each other, blowing up clubhouses, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, that was the other club I forgot from Lake County was the Night Sinners. And the Night Sinners, they folded up their patch and became Hell's Henchmen. Stu went after John Ford died.
You want to tell the people about what he did?
John Ford? Sonny Ford, I should say. Sorry. I wasn't. I heard about it. I wasn't in the club yet or prospecting when Sonny Ford blew himself up. He had like the biggest reputation, the longest standing biker club member in Lake County, and everybody knew who Sonny Ford was. I know that. For some reason, he handcuffed his old lady and another guy's old lady to his bed and pumped his house full of propane. He had like a 7-foot stockade fence all the way around his, like an acre or 2 acres of land with guard towers built up in the corners.
Yeah.
And he pumped the house full of propane and blew himself and these 2 girls up.
Said he wanted to go out like a Viking, right?
Yeah, that's what I heard.
Yeah. I'm going to do a story about it, and I'm going to cover all the facts of the case, and it's going to be good.
Yeah, Wayne would be able to tell you more about it. I wasn't there yet. Stupid was the president of the Night Sinners when they folded up with the Hell's Henchmen. So.
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
Are these guys still around?
If they're around, they're now Hell's Angels, because they went Hell's Henchmen, and now if the Hell's Henchmen went Hell's Angel, then they're now Hell's Angels, I would assume. But no, I mean, there was one guy from our club who dropped our colors and joined the Hell's Henchmen.
Did that happen a lot where people would join 1% clubs, or did they come and pick guys out of you guys' club?
That's the only guy we lost, and it was a decision he made. He wasn't the brightest bulb in the box to begin with between you and me. I mean, he missed a meeting and gave the excuse that he was at the Chicago Amphitheater for a concert. The amphitheater's been torn down for a couple of years. It's like, get your stories straight before you come in here and tell us a lie. And he showed up at our clubhouse after he joined the Hell's Henchmen, and Little Bit was president at the time. And I don't know what the words were said, but a little bit knocked him and his bike over. Just boom, smacked him. You know, my first interaction with the Hell's Henchman was shortly. I don't know if I was full patch yet or not. I was warned. Like one thing is, you know, they showed up at our bar. We knew they were coming. They were paying us a visit. They would start if a couple of them started horsing around, pushing each other. Move back, get away. Because next thing you know, these two guys are horsing around between them. Next thing you know, you're in the middle of it and they're not horsing around. You know, you got to keep your back to the wall, kind of keep your cool. You know, the Death Marauders are still around. That's like, if I understand correctly, they started in '77, so it's like 48 years.
Yeah, that's a long time. It's a long time.
They've kept their shit together for a long time. You know, that's really impressive. Now, there are other clubs like the Sojourners. I believe they're still out there and whatnot. So they were there before the Death Marauders. And so they've been doing a good job, too. But, you know, there were times when I went partying with a couple of the Hell's Henchmen. You know.
I was surprised to know that they are not. They're not a 1% club. The Hell's Henchmen wasn't a 1% club.
The Hell's Henchmen were a 1% club, yes.
Well, it wasn't before, and then they changed to a 1% club.
Anytime I knew of them, I considered them or believed that they were a 1% club. That was
I'm gonna look into it because I swear I heard that it used to not be a 1% club, and then they got a diamond.
I bet that would be the case with a number of 1% clubs, because you don't start out with, you know, a nation of members. You start out small generally, and at some point you build up.
Yeah, but I mean, a small club could be a 1% club, right?
If you want to put on that 1% patch and take the challenge when somebody challenges you, I guess.
Now, did you ever have it in your mind where you wanted to go that way? Did it ever cross your mind?
You know what? I was pretty convinced that I liked it. I loved the Death Marauders. That was my club, and I was pretty loyal.
One and done.
Yeah, this is my club. This is where I'm. You know, if I hadn't decided I needed to get sober, it would have been where I would have stayed, I believe.
Any situations where people were in accidents in the club?
Yeah, that's. I was tag along. That's where I got my nickname. This is bad, man. I just got a low battery sign, and I don't have a cord. I'm sorry.
Shit.
Damn. I'm sorry, man. As I was just talking about that before we got going, that I should have brought my cord. There was a guy named No Name, and he was riding his bike, and Empty was in the driving the backup van, and I was just getting off the cast, so I was in the backup van with Empty. And No Name was cool. He knew Empty wasn't riding, so at some point we stopped somewhere, and he said to Empty, "Hey, you want to ride?" Then he switched, let Empty ride, and he got in the van. And No Name was just an awesome guy, man. We were hitting it off really good. And we were partying out in Oregon, Illinois, State Park. And we got there Friday night. By Sunday, everybody's kind of like mellowing out, you know. And so No Name was doing a power run, went out to the main road, was doing a power run, and some guy in a Jaguar pulled in front of him. And we all heard it. They went out of sight just before the collision. And I said, that was bad. And then we all started running to the street. And his arm had come off in this lady's lap, and she threw it out the window of the car.
What? His arm came off?
Yeah. He hit this Jaguar, and his arm came off. And so, anyhow, I put it in an ice chest hoping they could sew it back on, but he didn't live to make it to the hospital. But the night before, or Friday night, he had come up to me and said, "We're going to have to call you Brillo." And I was like, no, we can think of a better name than that. Like Brillo pads. And
yeah.
So my nickname, when a guy gives you a nickname and then dies, you're pretty well stuck with the name. Well, Brillo became Brillo Pad, which became Podowski. So my nickname is like a,
Evolution.
travesty of names, man.
Yeah. Tell me the name of your book and where people can get it.
The book is Banshee Riders. I actually put a new cover on it because Amazon would not let me advertise with the old cover.
Yeah.
But it's on Amazon.
And what's the book consist of? Like, what's it about?
I was the advisor to the student newspaper at the community college after I, got sober, and I picked up this reporter, a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter named Tom Hallman from Oregon. I brought him out here for a conference, and he started talking to me about this experience. He met some Hell's Angels, and he was kind of fascinated by them. So I shared some stories. He says, "You need to write that." So, all right. So I think he was thinking I would write a non-fictional account of the Death Marauders. And it was like, I don't know how the Marauders would feel about that. And no, I don't want to do that. So the book is really, there's fictional characters, including people think the main character, if they ask me, is that you? I said, no, that's everybody in the book is fictional. But there are true events or events that I've kind of adjusted based on, true things and stuff. There's a friend of mine was reading it, and his wife got frustrated when it turned off the TV, went upstairs because he was laughing so hard. Now it's not all funny, but there are funny anecdotes in there from when I was in the club.
And where could they get the book?
Some stories that I heard that I wasn't with, personally. So, for instance, Wayne was riding with the guy, and I wrote this into the book in a different way, but the guy had an artificial leg, and it's held on by suction, and he didn't realize the leg had come loose. And, your leg is thick at the top, the pants are narrow at the bottom. It slid down to the bottom of his pants, and he's going down the road with the leg bouncing like this, and people are going by like, oh, my God. Yeah. And he didn't know his leg was loose. So,
That had to be a funny sight, man.
Yeah. So Wayne told me about that story, and I wrote it into the book with, a different situation kind of. But
you get it on Amazon, your book?
Yeah.
So how did this whole club originate?